Hey everyone, I hope you guys are enjoying TechCrunch Disrupt. My name is Jason Kincaid, I'm a writer for TechCrunch.
And I'm Leena and I'm a writer for TechCrunch as well.
So right now we're going to talk about some of the companies we just saw from the startup battlefield, and I think that some of these were definitely quite impressive. And the one that presented first and that really struck me as the most visually compelling certainly was Quickie. And Quickie, they showed a clip from, which movie was that from?
The
movie, the clip. Anyways, the computer tells everyone.
Alvin and the Chipmunks they showed.
It was from a Pixar movie. Anyway, so it was really impressive. You type in a search query and you see an audio and visual overview of the subject you've typed in. I mean, do you ever see yourself using something like this? Do you think it's more of a novelty?
You know, it's interesting. One of the judges pointed out that this is something that maybe they'd use in the future. It may be a little bit ahead of its time, but certainly as a novelty, I would definitely use it. And I love the idea that it's able to sort of bring in the data from like a Wikipedia entry, but also bring in like interesting data that I may not know. Like I didn't know Chris Sacco was rode across the country on his bike.
How did you miss that? He tweeted about it for like 6 months. We loved it. It was WALL-E, by the way. I just remember the movie.
WALL-E.
I think my favorite part of the presentation is they showed what would happen if you had an iPhone application. You boot up the iPhone app,
right,
and it says, "Good morning, Jason. Today is September 27th, and it's 75 degrees outside, and you have to do this today." And it seemed very futuristic. It seemed like,
for sure. I think there's a lot of potential for it to be used in other applications, and I think they mentioned that too, that there's definitely, that's one of the future use cases of the app.
I do think the judges had a point as far as right now the use case isn't very clear.
Right.
I think Louis Monnier, who actually has a really impressive background, he was one of the Alta Vista guys, he also worked on Cool, which it didn't do so well, but he really knows his stuff. And he said that he's heard a different use case from every person he showed it to, which is both good and, they really need to kind of get a targeted focus, at least to start with.
Do you think it's important for a startup to have direction right now as they're launching?
I think you need to give users some direction sometimes. I mean, in some cases you don't really need to. With Twitter, I guess they didn't really give users much direction, or people just sort of figure out how to use it themselves. On the other hand, given this platform, I might use it a couple times, and then if I wasn't really sure what to use it for, I might never come back. That said, very impressive, obviously.
For sure.
So
what do you think? Well, I was going to ask you, what do you think about Storify?
So Storify is interesting because for those who missed it, it helps you capture small bits of social media content, Twitter, RSS, and you piece it together to form a blog post, which is something we regularly we check social media and we base blog posts off of that. On the other hand,
Flickr or any other sort of social image sharing.
Exactly, and I see how they were talking about how it'd be great for like demand media and just building these massive content farms. If I was an average user, it might be kind of fun once in a while. I don't see myself building a blog around that kind of content.
Well, as a journalist, I don't see myself building it around that content. I mean, certainly you would use some of that content within, as we all, we write posts about tweets and sometimes Flickr images as well. But I don't really see myself as a journalist using it. But I was interested because the founder is a journalist, and he said that that's something that he drew upon when he was, starting the company.
Yeah, no, I think I definitely agree with you. I found if I were to base a story exclusively on a tweet without adding any extra opinion, commentary, context, it would just feel incredibly lazy. Like I wouldn't really feel comfortable writing that or posting that rather.
But you're right. I think there may be like for some content farm type of platforms, this could be a really good technology for them to use to engage, social media and their content.
And the other issue I think that came up during that was how they're going to monetize.
Right.
Because I think one of the judges, I think they were talking about doing sort of a content partnership and monetizing based on the content built on the platform, as opposed to a per seat model, which sounded difficult to me.
Yeah, I mean, the per seat model seems like a very enterprisey angle. I'm just not sure if that's the right fit.
Even with the per seat model, though, I'm sort of wondering how big the market is, right? So you're going to have a few companies that are all about getting a ton of SEO-friendly content, but I don't know if it's enough people to build a business around it, or you'd have to charge a really high per seat license fee to really make it into a big business.
We'll see.
Okay.
What about Sift? There's been a lot of hype around tweet meme, because of Twitter's sort of whole new
and
initiative.
These were the tweet meme guys.
Yes, these were the tweet meme.
So obviously they know what they're doing. What I got from it, it seems like a really advanced Twitter search, and I believe you could actually use it for other kinds of media content, RSS and Flickr and so forth. I think there's definitely a use case for it. On the other hand, I feel like Twitter at some point is bound to make an advanced search function.
Right. Well, here's another example of a developer sort of thinking ahead and making up for Twitter's lack of maybe real in-depth search features, and then launching it on his own. And this is really powerful, no doubt. I mean, some of the things he was doing on stage with the filtering and being able to single out certain people who were tweeting about a subject was really something that we would all use.
Do you think they're running into the same issue where they're filling a hole for Twitter?
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's a possibility.
Twitter did forge a partnership with TweetMeme for the retweet button. Now it's basically all the TweetMeme buttons that were littered across the web now use the official Twitter function. And apparently, everyone was happy about that. But on the other hand, I'd be surprised if TweetMeme got a really good deal out of it, because I don't think they had much of a choice.
Right.
Twitter is going to offer their own official button. It was sort of like, you guys either take our deal or you're kind of screwed. And I'm sure the TweetMeme guys have thought about this, and this is probably why they're basing it around multiple content platforms. On the other hand, it seems like most of these advanced searches are probably going to, at least initially, come from Twitter.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I do sort of applaud them for trying to think outside the box and see, where there's a hole, what can be filled, and maybe if there's an acquisition in the future, maybe a talent acquisition.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe it'll be the best thing ever.
It's the second app he's developed. So, what about Gunzu? Did you have a chance to look at that?
I didn't get too in depth on that one. How about you? I mean, what was your take on it?
I think also like another. It's a lot like Cooleris.
Okay.
So that it's sort of presenting a new way besides just typing in a keyword like you would in YouTube to search videos. And I think that it's definitely an interesting sort of idea, but maybe another one, it could be a little ahead of its time.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think so far? Let's go back to this morning, because there was obviously
a lot of controversy.
Some interesting panels. Let's put it that way. What was your take on the Angel panel?
Well, there's certainly a lot of emotion there, and I think that, as you could see from Dave McClure and Ron Conway and, all the angels that were represented there, everyone, the one common thread is they feel strongly about entrepreneurs, and that came across, I think. But, it's fascinating to see how, people differ on the opinions of valuations and, if valuations are so high, how that's affecting their angel investing. What do you think?
I thought one of the more interesting things that they talked about was the entrepreneur who's shooting for the sub $100 million exit, as opposed to the one who's swinging for the fences.
Right.
And that was something that Dave McClure he felt really passionate about. I think Chris Sacca chimed in as well, saying, even if they're not swinging for the fences per se, they're not going for the $1 billion IPO, $100 million or even a $20 million exit can really be life-changing for some of these entrepreneurs. Another thing I've heard against that, I was talking to an entrepreneur earlier today who was saying, well, sure, but if you're going into this aiming for the $20 million buyout, it's probably not going to work out. You have to have a strategy that does not depend on being acquired by Google.
Right, and that's, I think, I'm not sure who brought that up, but someone said that you should be swinging for the fences when you start a company. You should be wanting to start the next Google or the next Facebook or even the next Twitter. But I think the most important thing that I took out of that was that you should be passionate about what you do. And, I think sometimes now you have to be a little bit realistic that maybe you're not going to be able to make the next Google, but you could develop something that is really complementary to that platform that Google could eventually acquire.
See, the scary thing for me, when you're aiming for this $20-30 million acquisition, it usually is something that is complementary to Google or Facebook.
Right.
But the more complementary it is, the more obvious it seems it would be for them to build it themselves.
Right.
So that seems like the risk that would be inherent that I'm seeing. If I was going to build a better Facebook photos or a better, whatever product already exists, that would be my fear. So that's why I think the strategy of really shooting for something that isn't out there, a problem that isn't solved, and that would be difficult for these companies to fix on.
Well, it was interesting to see Ron Conway say that if they ever bring up a valuation in their initial interview when they're considering investing in them, that he won't generally won't invest in them.
And what did you think about the some of the later panels? Did you catch the Peter Thiel panel?
I did catch that, and that was really interesting. I mean, he's always, he always sort of sheds some interesting information about Facebook and his experience with them. I thought it was definitely something to note when he was talking about the social network and what he thinks about the film. He seems pretty happy the way that he was portrayed in it.
I don't think he's really portrayed in it very much. I think
Yeah,
that was
it's a small
point.
part. But he said that Facebook's $30 billion valuation is under what it really should be worth.
So, I mean, that really isn't that surprising. If I had invested in any company, I would probably say that it was really undervalued and should be worth 5 times as much as everyone else is valuing it. That's it. I mean, he's obviously a very smart guy, and I don't think he's just throwing it out there without any supporting evidence.
Yeah.
But it really doesn't surprise me for him to say that Facebook is worth more than we think.
Well, he's not going to come out and say like it should be undervalued, right? Or
Exactly.
it should be below 30 billion. But what is interesting is he did say that Facebook is going to probably IPO in the next 2 years.
I think everyone knows Facebook's going to IPO. It's just a matter of time. And I think actually Facebook had previously said that it's not going to be this year, and that they're waiting for. They're
waiting 2 years, and Thiel said that they're really trying to emulate the model that Google did with their public offering and going at a later stage. So, it's certainly interesting to see from Facebook's initial investor where they're headed.
All right. So, what did you think about? Did you catch the Chegg panel?
I didn't catch that as closely.
Well, all right. So I watched it with great enthusiasm, and well, for one, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that I was in college, and I remember what a gouge these textbooks were. And it sounds like for a $100 book, I believe that on average you're going to be spending $75 for a used book from your college bookstore, and it would spend like $40 for the rental. Now, obviously, you're not going to own the book after, so you're not going to get the resale value. But even the resale value for a used book back to your bookstore is always like painful. So, I mean, I'm really excited about it. That said, they just raised $75 million. They've raised over $200 million. And they said that a lot of that is going towards inventory because these textbooks are so expensive. But I'm having people talk to me in the ear. All right, so we are going back to the main event, so enjoy it. TechCrunch just dropped Battlefield.